From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello, I'm Alison Mitchell and welcome to Stumped. With me is Jim Maxwell for the ABC in Sydney, and Cherish Sharma is with us from Bangalore for Akashvani. Now we're going to have a chat about one-off test matches, something that the former Sri Lanka captain Angelo Matthews has heavily criticised after it was widely reported that one-off tests could potentially become a feature of the next World Test Championship cycle. Now, Matthews' post on social media got a lot of attention when he wrote, "We should not play a one-off test with anyone," going on to add, "You can't have one team playing 20 games and another playing 10 games in the same championship cycle." Well, this all comes following reports that the ECB is considering moving away from the principle of reciprocal home and away tests for the next cycle of the World Test Championship, which is due to start with the 2027 Ashes. Charu, we'll get into the wider issues in a moment, but generally speaking, where do you stand on the principle of nations just playing a one-off test against each other?
Well, one can sense Angelo's frustration. On the face of it, of course, I mean, as many test matches as one can fit, whether it's a one-off series or even more, fit them in, because the world is, or the top cricketing nations are still desperate to play test match cricket, or the new nations are perhaps, I suppose, almost ready to give up on it. But, it's not just a question of a one-off test, which seems like such a desperate attempt to keep test matches going. Much more a question of how much time do you have for that test match, because traditionally, conventionally, you'd spend at least 2 weeks, if not more, in an away nation trying to get used to those conditions and then play a meaningful red ball game. But if you just go in there and play a 5-day test match, that's not, that's just sort of just an excuse really to keep red ball cricket going. So it's a nice, ambitious gesture. I do think it's sort of like a force fit that, all right, we'll make you play one test match at least. There's something going on. But the quality of that test match might not be really worth it if there isn't enough time for especially the visiting team to get used to local conditions. So it's a little more complicated than just that one test match. It's what are you really pushing? Better standards, or just saying, all right, test match cricket is alive because we've allowed this one test match to happen?
And it feels it's all been triggered by a sense that the World Test Championship could expand to include all 12 test-playing nations for this next cycle. So you'll have Ireland, Afghanistan and Zimbabwe in there as well. And currently, the World Test Championship is a minimum of 2 tests in a series, isn't it? So a change to just allowing one test might be because it's nations such as Ireland, Afghanistan, Zimbabwe, where it's not feasible. This is the ECB's reported arguments that it's unfeasible to travel to those countries and actually for them to stage more test matches than that. I mean, on the flip side, the idea from the ECB is that they now seem to be pushing, or reported to be pushing, more 5 test match series with the likes of Pakistan and South Africa. But can you see why some of the bigger, richer boards might be tempted by the prospect of more 5-match series against each other, but then playing those smaller nations a lot less?
Does one really need to go back and remind everybody what happened to us, Afghanistan and Australia? It's Australia still haven't played them. So I think the top 3, 4, 5 nations are already playing as many 5-test series as they possibly can. And they'll probably continue to as long as time can be afforded. But it's just a question of time, Alison. There is very little time within those 365 days. And I don't see any more test matches happening at the expense of white ball cricket. So already we're scrounging around for time for these 5-test series between the top nations. And for them to now say, well, we'll play those for sure, and then we'll try and fit others in, there just isn't enough time, Alison. So maybe 5-test contests are just between 3 or 4 nations, and they'll remain there. And even that in the future might be under some kind of threat because of time.
And it could be that, from an England perspective, and probably similar for Australia and India indeed, where the home matches might well be a 5-test series, and perhaps some of those other nations like Pakistan and South Africa might be invited for those. But then when you travel away, the idea, and this is what Angelo Matthews is so against, the idea of just one test and a bunch of white ball games comprising the away tour. And Jim, he was looking at that revenue argument, and it's the fact that a board is suggesting that travelling away, the away country can't afford to stage more than a test match. So we'll play just that one with the white ball games in order to generate revenue. But he is saying on social media, he also posted that generating revenue and keeping test cricket alive are two different things, and you should not mix up the two. So Matthew's not believing there that playing, white ball cricket and generating revenue should be at the cost of diminishing tests. It's how to balance that sentiment, isn't it?
It's almost impossible. I think you'll end up having Ireland, Afghanistan, Zimbabwe at this point, and maybe Scotland, who else, playing these one-off tests. Maybe you could do a quadrangular series in some place and have 4 teams going around and get the matches out of the way in that regard, knowing that you're not going to potentially make much money out of them because of the lack of television dollars, even sponsorship. I'm not sure, but you've got to find a way to compromise somehow and maintain the marquee series at the highest level. We might even get India playing Pakistan in a 5-test series, even if we have to play it in Bulawayo or something. But we've got to maintain a standard, and then down the line with the pecking order of cricket, try and find a way for there to be some test cricket between the so-called minnows of the game. But it's just getting so tight, as we keep saying, to fit all this in. And we just don't want to lose it. And I'm sure that'll be to the detriment of the World Championship if we have the major nations only playing, in some cases, one-off tests. You're going to have an equality of itinerary around that to make it work.
But what about that argument that says nations like Sri Lanka, West Indies, staging test matches is a loss-making venture? So actually, some would say, isn't one test match against these nations better than none at all? It
probably is, but will they stomach that? Not just from a financial aspect, but what credibility is there in that? If that's the only game in the cycle that's played between the countries as a one-off test, I don't think so. But there's a fair bit to thrash out here. We can go back and play 3-day tests of 7 to 8 hours a day or something, like they did many years ago.
Yeah, 4-day tests are permitted, aren't they, against Zimbabwe, Afghanistan, Ireland, and that's what you tend to see when a bigger nation is playing against one of those nations in a test match. Charu, what do you think about, is just one test match just sort of keeping the lights on in a pretty limp way?
Probably that, because there just isn't enough time. I think the ICC calendar, the future tours, is so jammed anyway. It's such a nightmare to try and get more countries playing with each other, and some countries are not happy playing with lesser nations, if I can call them that, the minnows, because already the commercials for test matches, you both alluded to that a little earlier, are weak. And if you start playing nations that are not going to draw viewership or spectatorship, then you'll find very few people ready to host those matches already. I think in India, it's a bit of a millstone around an association's neck to be hosting a test match. So they take it to smaller venues where people, are a little more desperate to see the game at the higher level. And it's all kind of unraveling. And I do think that eventually commercial interests, which Angelo, of course, says shouldn't be mixed, but they have to be, because boards have to run on commercial success unless somebody is funding them, and nobody is. So it really does eventually boil down to a mixture of lack of time and therefore lack of scheduling more test matches with more nations, and of course the commercials as well. Lack of money to be hosting these things when the alternative, white ball cricket or your own league or whatever else in your own nation, is in fact doing reasonably well. So why would you want to do the reverse and say, I think we'll just spend a whole lot of money on test match cricket, playing one or the other, and lose the little bit of money we've made?
Here's an idea for you. What if there wasn't a World Test Championship per se, but there was a World Championship Series whereby all nations competed in equal, reciprocal, multi-format series where you do have the one test, series of ODIs, series of T20s, much like the women's multi-format. So it's equitable. But then around that, nations who want to have their own marquee bilateral series can still stage those key 5-match series, even if that does eventually become England, Australia and India. But what of the idea of a all-round multi-format championship where everyone's actually playing each other the same amount of times over the same matches, but with gaps to have marquee series in between?
Certainly, as far as the women's game's concerned, I think that's the way to go. I wouldn't be keen on it with the men's game because I think historically Test cricket's got so much tradition that you need to have it stand alone. But I'm sure as far as women's game's concerned, we've seen it with the Ashes, it could well be a feature to try and get more countries playing Test cricket. Now we have India, Australia, South Africa, England. That's about it.
I tend to agree. Jim, you've taken the words out of my mouth. I was about to suggest, without any disrespect, that, the women still don't play enough. And they're desperate for more visibility, for more commercial success, for more proving their prowess. So in their calendar, yes, much more could be fitted in, including a test match and, of course, the full series between many nations over the whole year, should it be commercially viable. But I think the men's calendar is already too crowded for all of that. And as the number of countries playing the game grows, they all want a piece of the action, which is now white ball action. So where are we going to fit in larger series, for, say, a month and a half, including a test match? It's just very tough, Alison.
I almost think that would be more compact if they're always only going for that one compact series, say. But yeah, as a lover of test cricket, the idea of one-off test matches, even within a multi-format series, we'd lose out on that sense of the evolving storylines that you get across a minimum. Even 2 doesn't feel like enough. A 3-match series, in my view, would always be appropriate to allow those storylines to unfold, and it's where we really get to know players and understand the characters of players and build their personalities as well. So let's hope that there still will be room for the test game. Speaking of which, we'll just turn our attention for a moment to a men's test squad announcement that has garnered a lot of interest, because the question is how England men were going to respond after such a dismal Ashes series down under, and their first 15-player squad since then has been named for the first test against New Zealand at Lord's next month. And it includes the uncapped trio of Emilio Gay, James Rew and Sonny Baker. Fast bowler Ollie Robinson comes back. He's had a 2-year international exile, and there's no room for opener Zach Crawley, which, Jim, having seen Crawley in the Ashes, where he didn't have the best of series, any surprise to you that he's been left out for this squad now?
Not really. I've been following his scores for Kent in the county championship, and he's struggling, isn't he? He's really struggling to make any runs. So just, simply on form, you had to start looking around. That's not to say he wouldn't be able to get his way back with a few runs between now and the next Ashes series. But yes, I think that's fair enough, although a lot of people listening to this would be saying, I've heard of Marvin Gaye. Who's this other fella? Emilio Gay, James Rew, and Sonny Baker.
Well, Emilio Gay actually comes from my part of the country, Northamptonshire. Yeah. He moved from Northants to Durham in order to just be surrounded by cricketers who are at the real top of their game. He's a really ambitious, absolute red ball badger, Jim. You would absolutely love him. He's he's now 26 actually. He's 26 years old, so he's got a bit of maturity to his game. A left-hander. He actually helped Italy to qualify for the T20 World Cup. So qualified for Italy through his mother's ancestry. Also could have qualified for the West Indies through his father's family. I think his parents were both born in the UK, but his father's family originally from Grenada. So, through the Northants system, up to Durham. But, purely on form, because, again, for him, 300s in 5 matches, I think it is, which has catapulted him now into this England squad to open. He bats at 3 for Durham. So he's been given that opener's slot alongside Ben Duckett. You'll then have Bethel, Root, Brooke, Stokes-Smith, likely Gus Atkinson there with Ollie Robinson and Josh Tongue. But Sonny Baker is a real lively pace option, so he's there for the high pace. Had a difficult international debut when he first played a white ball game, but a really lively character, and ECB have really invested in him with a central contract, even though he's only played 11 first-class matches to date. And then James Rew, the red-headed Rew, a name that you're going to hear a lot about, I'm sure, in years to come. He's sort of in the squad really as the spare batter and backup wicket-keeper here. He's got a younger brother as well at Somerset. He's only 18 and scored 100 against the Aussies at the Under-19 World Cup, you might remember. But James is 22 and he's done really well with the Lions. Again, came to Australia with them, and so he's come up through the system. And the other names, just to mention, Matt Fisher is in the squad, the Surrey fast bowler. He did play one test against the West Indies about 4 years ago. And the spinners slots, Shoaib Bashir and the leg spinner Rayan Ahmed, both of those are in the squad as well, because you've got, in terms of the pace options, Cass is injured and Jofra Archer is at the IPL, so he won't be back in time to be conditioned for Test cricket. So, yeah, that's the squad they've got.
That's good to see. Yes. Everything, as they say, everything old is Rew again.
Very good, very good. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see just whether Shoaib Bashir, it still feels like he is their number one pick as the spinner, but of course he didn't feature in the Ashes at all. And Rob Key, I sat and listened to him the other day when he gave a press conference after announcing that squad. He flagged the fact that Bashir had an unfortunate end to the English season because he'd broken a finger, and then with the conditions, they opted for Will Jacks. But he actually gave a real shout out to Mickey Arthur, who's Shoaib Bashir's director of cricket at Derbyshire, for playing him through this early part of the season. So Bashir has played a lot of cricket, contrary to Rayan Ahmed, who played a couple of games for Leicestershire, then of course got a call up for Delhi Capitals in the IPL. So he's been sitting and not playing, albeit, I'm sure bowling and learning as you do when you're at the IPL. But yeah, Bashir has actually been getting loads of overs under his belt. So that probably stands him in good stead for that first test at Lords.
Lots of new names, new reputations, I suppose, for England cricket. But Jim, I've got to ask you, there's an Aussie in the camp. Marcus North is a new national selector. How has that news gone down in Australia?
It's gone down very well because of the respect for Marcus, who played some Test cricket, played against England in the Ashes. I think his name's up on the honour board at Lords for taking 5 in a Test match. Was that against Pakistan? But anyway, yes, he's pretty well known in England, married an English girl. So I think this is a good move. You might remember Rod Marsh was integral to the Ashes in 2005 as the sort of a director of cricket there at the academy. So, yes, the Aussies are never far away from being influential. So enjoy it. Good man, Marcus. You better get him on stump for a chat.
So, Alison, how has that gone down with the British media? It's like, don't we have enough who can select our own team?
There has been the odd voice sort of pointing out the Aussie passport, but I think when we are in an international game. It's nothing new to have Australians, Zimbabweans, New Zealanders involved in the English game. And similarly, when you look around the world, it is fully an international arena, so not an issue at all. And he's so well ensconced into the domestic game in England with his experiences and all the years he's been at Durham since 2018 as director of cricket. So, yeah, England finally have their national selector and they can move forward. Well, that's it for Stumped for this week. So I'll say thanks to Jim and to Cherry. Do give us a like and subscribe to us here on our YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode. Until next time, bye-bye from us.